Satoru Mikami is your average salaryman who gets stabbed by a passing robber when protecting his junior co-worker. In his final moments, Satoru hears a strange voice granting him various abilities based on his final thoughts and feelings. Ignoring this, with the last of his energy, Satoru makes his junior colleague promise to wipe his hard drive at home before blacking out. Satoru wakes up disoriented and realizes that he has been reincarnated as a slime. Stuck inside a cave and bored out of his mind, he discovers that his body can absorb plants and decides to make it his mission to absorb all the plants in the area. After a while, he begins wondering where all the plants he's taken in are actually going, and is surprised when a voice tells him that everything is stored inside his unique skill named Predator, which allows him to absorb, store, break down, and analyze things he's absorbed. The voice also identifies itself as another unique skill named Great Sage, which acts as a guide and an encyclopedia for basically everything. With the help of the Great Sage, Satoru realizes the plants he's been absorbing are called hippoke herbs, which serve as a base for healing potions, and many rocks nearby are actually rare magical ores. With that knowledge, Satoru sets off to absorb all the herbs and ores inside the cave. Eventually, he rolls into a pond, but that doesn't hold him back for long as he realizes he can absorb water and spit it out to propel himself like a jet ski across the pond. From here on, he basically learns waterbending, but in his excitement, he accidentally runs into a strange monster that intimidates him, but Satoru struggles to identify what type of monster this is because as a slime, he doesn't have eyes to see or a mouth to communicate with. Luckily, the monster can communicate via telepathy, and being amused with the slime, he decides to teach Satoru how to see if he promises not to run away and to come back and visit in the future. As it turns out, the monster has been trapped in this cave for the last 300 years, bored out of his mind, and is looking for a friend. Under his guidance, Satoru is finally able to see the world around him and realizes the strange monster he's been talking to is actually a dragon who introduces himself as Veldora, the storm dragon, one of the 4 true dragons in existence. Freaking out, Satoru tries to excuse himself, but Veldora reels him back in by talking about reincarnations. As it turns out, there have been multiple occasions where people are reincarnated into this world, and these people are referred to as otherworlders. On the other hand, there are also people that get summoned from other worlds, and these people are labeled the summoned. As it turns out, Veldora was sealed in this cave by a summoned hero because he accidentally destroyed a kingdom. After seeing how helpful Veldora has been, Satoru asks if the dragon would like to be friends with him, to which Veldora plays hard to get, but quickly agrees when the slime threatens to leave. On a side note, we also see Satoru's co-worker fry his computer hard drive as per his last request. Back in the cave, the two discuss how to break Veldora out of his imprisonment, since he only has enough magicules, which is effectively magic energy, to survive for another 100 years. As it turns out, magical energy has been leaking out of Veldora for the last 300 years, which explains why so many magical herbs and ores have appeared in the cave. The slime tries to analyze Veldora's prison to see if there's a way out of this, but fails. Without any other better ideas, the slime suggests Veldora allow him to absorb the entire prison with Veldora inside, to buy them more time since Veldora will stop leaking magicules inside Satoru's stomach. Veldora is happy to go ahead with this plan, but asks the slime if they could give each other names before they continue as a mark of their friendship, and to give Satoru a little bit more power for his travels, as names given by more powerful monsters will grant lesser monsters extra abilities and stats. After a bit of thought, the slime decides to give Veldora the last name Tempest, which he loves, and Veldora officially names the slime Rimuru Tempest. After his power-up, Rimuru absorbs Veldora along with the force field he's been imprisoned in, and stores them away in his stomach for analysis. Unknown to Rimuru, Veldora's disappearance is immediately noticed by the kingdoms around the area. As it turns out, Veldora happens to be one of the few catastrophe-level monsters in existence, and his presence alone in Jura Forest, which is where his cave is located, was actually deterring countries from crossing the forest and starting wars with each other. The adventurers guildmaster of the kingdom of Blamund decides to send out a party to find out what's happened to Veldora. Meanwhile, Rimuru carries on exploring the cave and stockpiling any herbs and ores he comes across. He also starts taking down monsters inside the cave and absorbing them after realizing that, despite not tasting great, eating monsters with his predator skill allows him to inherit skills the monster had, as well as mimic their appearance. Eventually, after absorbing the abilities of a giant bat monster, Rimuru is finally able to talk out loud. Several weeks of bouncing around the cave later, Rimuru finally finds the exit to the cave, but before he is able to figure out how to open the doors. They open themselves, revealing an adventurer team the guildmaster sent in to investigate Veldora's disappearance. Rimuru thinks about talking to the adventurers, but decides not to since he's a slime and the adventurers might attack him. After finally leaving the cave, Rimuru decides to go on some adventures and enjoy himself, so he has stories to tell Veldora when he breaks free of his prison. When suddenly, a group of armed and frightened goblins appear, asking what business does such a powerful monster have in the forest. Rimuru is confused, but tries to introduce himself anyway, and the power of his voice quickly overwhelms the goblins, who beg him to be mindful of how powerful his abilities are. As it turns out, before Veldora disappeared, stronger monsters were too scared to hunt in the area, but now that he's gone, the goblin village has suffered constant attacks and they are in dire need of someone who can help protect their village. Rimuru is a bit confused why the goblins felt that a little slime like himself could defend the village, especially since he doesn't believe he's very strong at all. But the goblins point out that the aura Rimuru is releasing proves that he is an exceptionally powerful monster. Baffled, Rimuru asks the great sage to switch perspectives so he can take a look at himself, and lo and behold, his aura is monstrous. Brushing it off as a test and not his own ignorance, Rimuru congratulates the goblins on passing, while wondering how those adventurers earlier managed to miss his overwhelming aura. Recently, the goblin village has been under attack from monsters known as direwolves, who are significantly stronger than the goblins. Initially, the goblins had their own guardian, a named goblin who would defend the village against stronger monsters, but the direwolves proved too much, and even he lost his life, leaving the village defenseless. And now, with only about 60 goblins left who can still fight and 100 direwolves to defend against, the village is unlikely to survive another attack. Rimuru asks what he'll get in return if he helps the village, but in their current state, all the goblins can offer is their undying loyalty. Outside the tent, we hear a howl, signaling that direwolves are nearby, which has the whole village panicking, but Rimuru steps up to announce that in place of Veldora, he has decided to protect the village and become their guardian. To get the village into fighting shape, Rimuru treats all the injured goblins with potions he created from the herbs he absorbed earlier in Veldora's cave, and asks the goblins to fortify their village. That night, the direwolves come to attack the village, but are pushed back by the goblins and some traps Rimuru set up. Annoyed that they're being held back by a slime, the direwolf leader charges in and gets trapped in Rimuru's thread before getting taken down. In a show of strength, Rimuru absorbs and transforms into the direwolf leader before threatening to wipe out the entire pack if they don't submit to him or leave. At first, the wolves seem like they want to keep fighting, which makes Rimuru nervous as he really doesn't want to fight a whole pack of wolves, when suddenly all of them lower their heads and swear to serve Rimuru. The goblins celebrate their victory and the direwolves join the village. To help the direwolves settle in, Rimuru asks the goblins to pair up with the direwolves. He also decides to give everyone in the village names to make managing the goblins and giving them tasks easier. Unknown to Rimuru, naming monsters actually uses a lot of magical energy, and after naming the entire village of goblins and a direwolf, Rimuru blacks out for 3 days. Upon waking up, Rimuru notices a cute goblin girl greeting him, and the previous frail village leader is now a bodybuilder. As it turns out, giving names to everyone in the village has allowed them to evolve into more powerful versions of themselves, except for Gobta. Even the direwolves have now all evolved, because apparently if you name one wolf, the entire pack receives the benefits. Ranga, the leader of the wolf pack, is so powerful now that just wagging his tail can create gusts of wind, which blows Rimuru down a hill. To offload responsibility, Rimuru gives village leadership back to Rigurd, who was the previous leader of the village anyway, and bestows him the title Goblin Lord. He then focuses on improving the living conditions for the village by setting up scouting teams and areas for food gathering. However, they quickly run into roadblocks as goblins are not very good with craftsmanship and struggle to build or make any clothes that don't look like rags. Rigurd suggests reaching out to some dwarves in a kingdom named Dwargon, as the goblins have traded with them in the past. Excited to see dwarves, Rimuru decides to leave the village in Rigurd's hands and sets out to Dwargon in hopes of finding a solution for the village's building and clothing problems. And with that, we've covered episodes 1 to 3 of the anime. If you enjoyed the video, please feel free to leave a like and subscribe, as it really helps the channel. Thank you for watching until the end, and as always, have a great day.